Okay, this is another skiing technique. It is one that I don't think I've ever heard mentioned, and I think it's a much more minor technique. It's called minimizing lateral motion of the upper body center of mass. Right? We just studied how you should minimize vertical motion of the upper body center of mass, and this is being done more and more. It wasn't done before. Uh, not done until about 2011, 12 or so after I taught it. Now, principles behind this is the more the upper body center of mass is moved laterally across a hill, back and forth, left and right, the more unnecessary force must be applied to shift it back and forth, right? So, don't move that mass if you don't have to. Now, the more force applied, the greater the amount of bleed off energy lost, right? So in slalom, it is quicker and easier to extend the legs laterally, as horizontal as possible to get your skis around the gate without having to move that upper body center of mass. All right. Therefore, don't make slalom turns with your body compressed, your legs bent at the knees. All right. And I'll show you an example of a skier who does this in slalom. Ted Ligety. All right. Let me pull it up. All right. Okay, so you see then when he's laid out in a turn, his legs are compressed. He's kind of skiing with his butt down here, right, almost at a right angle. He tended to ski this way in slalom. So in a turn, you see he's still compressed, and his butt's down. He's on his tails. He's not really getting good tip initiation. Um, he's initiating pressure right about here and back, right? You see how he's compressed, so he stays compressed in those turns. And what I'm saying is, you should extend your legs, right? That way, the more compressed the legs, the more bent the legs, you got to get your upper body center mass further back and forth, right, to get those skis around the gates. See how compressed he is? He's compressed right there. See that right angle? Compressed, compressed. Not only is he compressed, but he's too far back. Oh, oh, see that? He didn't have counter rotation. Chest chasing ski tips. The rebound energy tosses him in the air. Compressed, compressed, compressed. Body compressed, legs compressed. Now this is Petra Vlhova in her latest slalom. It was part of a combined, Super G and slalom combined. And it looked to me that she was trying to lower her body position, keep it low, but then she compressed her legs and turns. Right now, the idea behind minimizing vertical motion of your upper body center of mass is you pull up those knees as your skis cross over the hump, right? But then you shoot them out laterally, right? Don't neglect shooting them out, right? Extend those legs out laterally with hip angulation, as horizontal as possible to lay them out. So she's a little compressed there. Not as bad as Ted, a little compressed, but I'm thinking she's skiing. She's trying to stay low, but she's not shooting them out to the side. She's staying compressed the whole time. I think she's trying to learn a new thing to stay low because she tends to go up and down a little bit, right? And she's not quite getting it yet. See how compressed she is? All right. Uh, Now, requirements for minimizing lateral motion of the upper body center of mass differ between slalom and GS, Super G, and downhill due to one, in slalom, you can ski your upper body through the flexible slalom gate, right? But in GS, Super G, and downhill, you don't have those single flexible gates. You got those solid double gates with a cloth in between, and you got to get your whole body around that, right? So there's a difference in cutting, cutting the lateral motion of your upper body. You can't cut it like in slalom, right? Just getting your legs around it. You have to ski your upper body around that gate. All right. So the second thing is the higher speeds in Super G and downhill put a premium on maximizing the distribution of force application, which requires emphasis on continuous force in sweeping turns to attain continuous low-level force application. So the idea is, it may not be a good idea to avoid lateral motion, right? You want to first minimize exceeding shear force, breaking bonds, and you want to apply constant force throughout, right? And that may result in more sweeping turns, all right? So there's a premium on that. But you can also balance that against the shorter distance if you take a tighter line. So you can have constant application of force, with a very quick transition and still ski a tighter line. But then you may risk having to apply greater force, which can exceed shear force and bleed energy. So there's a balance here that you got to find. Now, less lateral movement of the upper body center of mass back and forth will require less work and thus less muscle fatigue, right? All right, so how do you do this? Well, in slalom, to minimize lateral motion of the upper body center of mass, you extend the body laterally as the skis go around the gate, right? You got to get those skis around the gate. You don't have to get the rest of your body, right? And there's two ways of doing this. One is you shoot out your legs laterally, extending them as much as possible, as horizontal as possible, while yet maintaining hip angulation and hip rotation. All right. Now, when I used to ski, real hard turns, chest lock downhill, as my legs cross a hump, I would immediately shoot out my legs to rapidly re-engage force application. Right. Extend them out rapidly, shoot them out to the side, fully extend them. Now, one exception is a Hirscher. I mean, I don't know if I've seen too many skiers do this. I know Hirscher had an uncanny ability to do this. In exceptionally demanding turns, wide gate sets, Hirscher would sacrifice some of the hip angulation to extend not just his legs, but his whole body to increase his body reach. Now, you'll see in this video that in a lot of the turns, he maintains some hip angulation to keep his upper body center mass up, but he largely sacrifices it. Let's take a look at that. All right. All right. So he's laying out his whole body, getting a little hip angulation, laying out his whole body, just a little hip angulation there. All right. Maybe even more in that turn. See how he's laid out? All right. Okay. One thing he's doing, though, he's getting that outside shoulder down, and that helps. All right, so look at how laid out he is. All right. And he's able to do it. Oh, this is Daniel Yule. So you see how laid out there? Okay, he's pretty laid out there. Not bad. Right, this is old school. Remember Ted Ligety, how compressed he is? He's not really extending. He's compressed right there. He's skiing kind of squat, compressed, right? That's short. That's effectively shortening his legs, That means in order for the skis to get around, he's got to get his upper body further, across the hill. And that's just extra weight you're throwing back and forth, which means extra force application. And it's a little bit slower to get that weight to get that upper body mass across the hill. That takes longer, right? And it's a fraction of a second each gait you're losing. I mean, the experts are going to say, "Oh, that means nothing." No, I think it does mean something. Just like vertical motion, it is slower because it takes time for you to come back down before we can apply force. It's just a fraction of a second, and you're not going to see it with your eyeball, right? I mean, I can kind of see it, right? But most people won't even notice it. But along the course of 50, 60 gates in a course, well, it adds up each fraction of a second. So here's Petra skiing also a little bit compressed. She's got nice long legs. She should shoot them out, extend them out. Use the whole length of your legs. All right. All right. Now, so again, Marshall Hirscher not only just extended his legs, he extends his whole body, sacrificing a little hip angulation, but I believe that he does is fully knowing that if there's a substantial rut, right, the rut will act like somewhat like the angled road of a race car track turn. You know how those turns are sloped from outside going down to inside, right? Also, he only does this for excessively wide and demanding turns. I mean, he doesn't do this all the time, right? So I want to show you an example. If this is a slalom gate, it's flexible down here. It bends, right? You can knock it down and ski through it, right? On the inside slope, it's sloped down, but on the outside slope, it's sloped up. And, the centripetal force vector is being applied this way, right? So that slope makes that application of force more perpendicular, directly down upon it, which has less risk of losing or breaking ice bonds and losing grip and skidding out, right? Because you're more perpendicular because of this slope here. And the centripetal force is pushing this way, right? Creating a resistance force by the snow this way. All right, so this is a key advantage for taller skiers. If you're a tall skier, you got to maximize use of your leg length, right, and your body length. So I say caution, there's a trade-off with hip angulation. Don't confuse extending the legs with extending the whole body like what Hirscher does, right? No, I admit, I never used to extend the whole body. I never needed to, right? But I would extend my legs. I'd shoot them out. So you can extend your legs while maintaining hip angulation, but if you extend your whole body, you're going to sacrifice some of it, right? And if you sacrifice some hip angulation, you're going to drop your upper body center of mass. You can lose part of that lever arm, which pulls you upright. Creates a torsion lever that throws you upright, and you can risk roll down and slide out. All right, so complicating factors, rut formation. If there's a well-developed rut, then skiing the outside slope of the rut is like driving on the slope curve of a race car track, allowing you to have less hip angulation, right, letting you get away with it. However, be wary about, contacting that inside slope. You go in this inside slope, that's like skiing on a fallaway. You got to really crank your mass over that, right? Otherwise, you're going to slide out. All right, now, so in GS, Super G and downhill, you can't cheat like that in slalom, right? You got to get your upper body center mass all the way around that gate because it's a two-pole gate with that cloth in between, right? You can't ski through that, or you're gonna wipe out and crash. So what you can do is, you can try to get to as close to the gate as possible to minimize that lateral motion. But really, it's not so much about minimizing lateral motion. It's more about taking a tighter line, right? Traveling less distance, all right? But, in any event, be careful about getting too close because something like this can happen. This is Bodie Miller. He actually sliced open his hamstring pretty bad with this wipeout here. I'm sorry, I forgot to mute out the sound. So watch, he nails this gate, nails this gate, and he hits that gate too. He's cutting it close. And this one, he whacks hard. You'll see it from a different angle. And that's where he gets sliced right there. He had a huge gash in his leg.
That is coming down Golden Eagle right there.
Right
this
here.
Is the compression I was thinking about right
Bam.
in here. Oh, no, he actually grabbed it.
And you know what? I think, let's take a look at that. You risk cutting it close. Sometimes there's a little rut, and that rut can push you closer than you expect, right? Looks like there was a rut there, and Bodie's fairly tall. He's got long legs, so he gets in that rut, and it pushed him closer probably than he anticipated, right? All right, so that can happen. Be careful with that. A common exception is, tactical necessity of gate to gate, right? Now, a later gate may require that you make a wide turn on a previous gate, right? Why this is there? I don't know how they got there. All right. So, as stated under principles in Super G and downhill, there's a premium on maximizing distribution of force application in space and time, right, to avoid exceeding the shear forces, which results in you breaking ice bonds and throwing snow and thus bleeding energy. This requires constant application of low-level force. So you want to always be in a term, you want to spread that out throughout the whole course. Spread the force application, right? To minimize the risk of exceeding shear force, all right? And this means you're always in a turn, and you're allowing for only a very rapid transition. You go from one edge, transition fast, shoot them out to the other side, right? Get those legs out, shoot them out. Now lift them up as you go over the hump. You don't want to get a vertical motion. Now, to determine how wide of a turn, you must balance exceeding shear force with shortening the distance. So if you cut a tighter line, the idea is you're going to run a shorter distance, right? Now you think you can go faster because you're going less distance, but if in doing so you exceed shear force and throw more snow, right, to get that tighter line, then you can actually backfire, right? So it's a balance that you got to play with and try to get a feel for, right? And it's going to depend upon your feel on the snow, right? There's other factors. For example, terrain is a factor you got to take into account, which is going to complicate this. Gate set, of course, is a factor that complicates this. Snow conditions, for example, oftentimes further away from the gates, you got soft, fluffy snow. You get in that, boy, you lose grip, and it also slows you down, right? The need for tactics, which preclude getting close to the gate as possible. All right, so it's kind of complicated here, all right? But the idea is you minimize lateral motion of the upper body center of mass. Much more feasible, much more effective in slalom than I think these, right? More applicable here. The effects is quicker turn initiation because shooting out the legs, especially in slalom, is quicker than having to push your whole upper body mass back and forth. That's just slow and clunky, right? Extend those legs. Don't ski compressed. Less force application is required. It takes more force to push that mass back and forth, right? Which means, you risk breaking more ice bonds, throwing snow, bleeding energy. less bleeding energy, less muscle fatigue for having to do it, right? So, quick review. Advantages: shooting out the legs is a lot faster than moving the upper body mass back and forth. Excess lateral movement of the upper body center of mass requires unnecessary force application, which can break ice bonds, throw snow, and bleed energy. So, how to do it? Well, you can just rapidly shoot out your legs, extending them as much as possible horizontally, and maintaining your hip cranked at an angle, right? Or you can do what Hershey does, extend the whole body, sacrificing some hip angulation, right? But you risk roll down and slide up. However, I mean, Hershey probably had a great feel for that, the rut, how to use it, right? And I'm willing to bet that's how he got away with it. All right, that's it for that lesson. I know it's probably going to be more controversial, so more likely to be attacked, right, as being untrue. But I'm telling you, I think the physics is sound.